Welcome to Celtic Medicine Stories, a podcast where we explore stories from the old Celtic lands, with the understanding that they carry medicine for us. I'm your host, Kat Horton, and I offer these stories in the spirit of the oral storytelling tradition of the British Isles. That is, they are free and they're open to everyone, always. Although these stories often have come from another time and have evolved through time with the oral storytelling tradition, they are here still for a reason. If you're curious about going deeper with this story, with the images, symbols, characters, landscapes, sounds, whatever it is that's speaking to you from this particular story, then there are some free resources below which will help guide you in that process. Welcome back. This is the second part of Merlin's story. If you haven't listened already to the first part, please do so, because it's going to give you some context for this battle that's about to happen and Merlin's grief. So this battle happened in a field by a river in a place that now lies on the western section of the English-Scottish border. In the old text, the battle is recorded as happening in the year 573 and is labelled one of the 3 futile battles of Britain. So we don't know why it was fought, and some suggest it was futile because it pitted Britain against Britain when their fighting power would have been better directed at the invading Angles. The short written record also states that this was the battle in which Merlin became mad. And it's his madness that became the focus of my telling in this story. Having experienced the madness myself of traumatic grief and spent multiple stretches of 3 days and 3 nights fasting out in the wilderness, I drew on these experiences to imagine his initiation. Now this battle, they all know it's coming. It's just a few days from now, and everyone is preparing. And because he is the court bard to King Gwenthilau, he must go, he must leave the village. And so off he goes to the court. And there he is, up on the palisade of the fort, a few nights now before the battle. And up there, Gwenthilau has 2 huge birds that fly out for him. They fly out across the land every day, keeping an eye on what's going on. The birds are up there squawking. And he's up there, Lailukin. He's doing rituals, saying prayers. Prayers of protection, prayers of remembrance of the old ones, that these will be remembered. These souls that fall this day will be remembered. Prayers of trust and peace, strength for his people. Yes, courage, belonging. But in his heart, there is another secret fear, one that he did not speak to the grove. He could not bring himself to speak it. So deep is this one. For you see, many years ago, his father decided that his sister should be married to King Rudrick, the one that they face. Because these have been sworn enemies for a long time. And so by sending his daughter to be married to the king, it was an offering of peace. And it's worked. 20 years or so now, these 2 kingdoms have not fought. They've been at peace. And that has allowed Lailukin to go visit his sister. And it is his sister he thinks of now on this night, and it his nephew, her son, this boy who he just adores, this boy who is in his heart all the time. And he's been, because of the peace between these 2 kingdoms, he's been able to visit this boy since he was born. He remembers bouncing him on his knee when he was little. He remembers playing with wooden swords with him when he was little and real swords with him as he grew. He remembers walking in the forest with him and showing him the plants and the roots and how to make the prayers. And as this one, he just passed his 15th winter. No doubt he will be in the retinue of the king, and no doubt they will be standing opposite each other on the battlefield. This is his secret fear that he carries in his heart. He doesn't know how to express. 4 brothers also he has. They will be standing with him on this side, but they too will be bringing their lives to this battle. So as he does the final prayers, he tries to hold this fear in his heart. And that night, the last night before the battle, he is called to the feasting hall. He is called to sing as loudly and as strongly as he can the songs of praise, the songs that recall all the deeds of these warriors, of the ones that came before him, of all the kings and warriors that came before them, of the Selagove people, reminding the warriors of who they are, of where they are, that this is their home and this is what they're fighting for, reminding them of their belonging, of their roots in this soil. And he sings and sings and sings late into the night, and they drink and they drink and they eat. And they throw their scraps to the dogs under the table, and they drink some more. Some of them sleep. Some of them keep pounding on the table, remembering who they are and why they're here and why they're fighting. So that by the time dawn comes, they are ready. And they go out of the fort and onto the battlefield, and there are the people that have come from across the land. They're women, they're men, they're farmers. They've pulled together some semblance of armors and swords. And as the battle drums are beat, you can hear still in the smithy the smith banging her hammer on the swords, last minute fixings, sharpening up the edges of swords, fixing shields, fixing helmets, banging in time with the war drums. And the warriors come out from the fort together with the villagers, all of them now warriors, united in this one feat, this one united purpose, to defend their home, to defend their land, to defend all of who they are and all of who they've ever been. And his job as chief bard is to stand in front of these people and to remind them of the victories, to remind them that they are protected, to remind them even those that fall will be taken care of, will be taken to the other world, and will be praised as victors in the other world. And he sings the songs and he tells the stories as the drums beat. And as the sun rises, King Gwenthilao picks up his horn, his battle horn, and with 3 sharp blasts, it starts. King Rudrick responds with 3 sharp blasts, and they go. Warriors from both sides running with their swords and their spears, running at each other. Brothers, cousins, sisters, all of them together. And this battle goes on for days, they say. We don't know how long it goes on. They fall back to the fort and sleep at night. Rudrick's camp, go back to their camp. They sleep or whatever they do at night. And they come back and they fight. And the morning goes on for days. They look, and sometimes he's fighting. Sometimes he's standing on the ridge of the fort watching the signs, watching to see what's happening, making more prayers. And over the course of days, messengers come to him and tell him of his brother's death, one after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4 brothers lost already in the battle. And one late afternoon, he's standing there, and another messenger comes and tells him it's happened. His nephew has fallen, dead. The granite stone that's been in his chest for days seems to turn to molten lead and leaks down his stomach and down his legs and into his feet, numbing him. And then he watches in the middle of the battlefield. He can see Queen Gwenthilao surrounded by his warriors, but somehow the circle has been broken. And Rudrick's men are coming in on their horses. They're taking over. Gwenthilau's giant birds from the top of the fort come down, sweeping across the battlefield. And they scream as Gwenthilao is pulled down off his horse. He can't see what happens. All he sees is Rudrick's banner going up and a roar from Rudrick's army of victory. Gwenthilao is down. He must be dead. He sees all of Gwenthilau's people contract. They know what's happened. They pull back. As he turns to look at the fort, the doors are opened and the people start to run. Some of them still fighting. Some of them just run for the cover of the fort to get as many of them in they can before they shut the doors. Lyloka, not feeling a thing, does what any self-respecting Celt would never imagine themselves doing. He whistles up his wolf and he walks off the battlefield. So he just starts walking. He drops his sword, pulls off his helmet, and he just starts walking up the river. His wolf coming along with him. He's pretty sure somebody must have seen him, and it won't be long before they start to pursue him. So he picks up the pace. He's going up now, up the valley, heading a little north, a little east, going up the hill, the river being his guide until at some point he takes a north and goes up into the fells and up into the deep into the forest. He's not as familiar with this part of the forest. Brambles are snagging at his legs. The branches getting lower. He's trying to push himself through. And now he's running. All of his effort with these lead legs that now he has, pulling him up this hill, running for his life. For hours, he runs, gasping. At some point, he stops, leans up against a tree to catch his breath. And he watches his wolf. His wolf's caught scent of something. And he hears at the bottom of the hill that he's just summited, he hears huffing and puffing and clanking of armor. Ah, shit, they're coming. They're coming. And so he takes off further up the hill, goes through a snaggle of bushes, and then sees a big apple tree. He sends his wolf into the gorse bushes. He knows what to do instinctively. You know, humans are going to crawl into those prickly things. And Lylokan climbs the apple tree up into the heart of it, wraps himself around the trunk. With an effort of his will, pulls back into his center all the parts of him that are scattered around the land, the parts of him that are still on the battlefield, the parts of him still in the dream temple, the parts of him with his parents and his sister right now, the parts of him in the grove. He pulls it all back, all right into his center. And he takes one big deep breath, holds it, goes as still as a tree trunk. Blending into the bark, he becomes tree. Silent. He hears Rudik's warriors below, snuffling around, breathing heavy, but they don't hear him. Catches a glimpse of some red fabric moving through the forest, but they don't see him. He smells them, sweaty, dirty, bloody, but they don't smell him. And they've lost the trail. They feel confused, the warriors, and eventually they just turn around and head back down the hill. Breathes a sigh of relief, but he stays right where he is in that apple tree, still, quiet, until the stars start to peek through the veil of darkness. And eventually he lets himself come down from the tree and drop to the earth. And he remembers the words from the oak tree. Change is constant, this you know well. Renew your life by mourning those who fell. And with that, he feels the lead start to drain out of his legs into the earth. He feels the stone granite that's been in his chest for days start to dissipate. And underneath it is a giant wave of grief. And it racks through his body, bringing him to his knees, sobbing, yelling, "Why? Why? Why?" As he screams and he rages, tears pouring from his eyes, his throat roar, "Why?" Burying his head in the earth, crying, there's snot coming from his nose. He's covered in dirt and he's pounding on the earth. Why did you take them? Why did you take them? That's the grief cry out of him, racking his body, breaking his chest open as he falls into the earth over and over and over, sobbing. Eventually, the waves seem to lessen, and he's able to lay down with his face in the dirt. He can't sleep, but he lays there still for some time before the next waves come and rip him apart again, sobbing, screaming, roaring in his rage, the injustice of all of this and the loss, this little one, these memories of this little boy. It's to bounce on his gone. His tears flow down his beard and into the earth again, beating his fist on the soil until he has no more left. Again, laying down in the earth, beaten. At some point, he starts to notice the cold gray light, that light that comes before the sunlight, seeping into the forest. And something tells him to move. And so he gets to his feet and he starts walking through the forest. He doesn't know where he's going. He just walks. And at some point, the waves of grief come again and they knock him back down onto his knees, and again, sobbing and raging and pounding at the ground until it moves through and he lays down flat and still. And again, something nudges him. Get up, move. And he moves. For days this goes on. 3 days and 3 nights. They say he did not eat, he did not sleep, he did not drink. He wandered in the Wildwood, he and his wolf. And when the waves of grief hit him, he let them move. He got down on his knees and he let them move. And when they were done, he'd get up again and start walking. And on the end, somewhere in towards the middle or the end, who knows, of the 4th night, he'd managed to find his way up to the top of the fell above the tree line, laying on the rough grass, his back stretched out, on the top of the moor, the stars above him. His mind at this point fragmented like as many points of light as the stars are above him. And as the cold, damp earth seeped through his clothes into his back, he realized he had a back, and he had arms, and he had legs, he had a body. He realized he had a body. And that meant that he still had the choice. He still had the choice to live or to die. He could continue this way. Let his mind go to pieces and his soul slip out of his withered, dirty, ragged body. Or he could choose to live. They no longer had this choice. His nephew, his brothers, all those who had been slain are laying now on the battlefield. They no longer have this choice. He still had it. And so somewhere before dawn, he got himself up. And he walked, and this time he knew where he was going because he had seen a spring somewhere in this wandering. He had seen a spring, and he knew where it was. And so now this time he walked with purpose, and he found that spring, and he had to scrabble down this big scree cliff to get there. But he found it. And as the sun was just starting to peak above the eastern ridge, he cupped his hands under this spring. And he looked at the sun and he said, I choose life. He took in the life-giving waters that are coming straight out the mountain. He took them into his body and felt them flow down the whole of him, bringing him back to life more. He splashed it on his face, washing the snot and the dirt and the blood off his face and his beard, and drunk in this water of life, this life-giving mountain. And he knew that he was here for some reason. He was still here. He didn't know now what his role would be in this new world. But here he was. He had a body. He's alive. And there's something he needs to do, and he trusts that it will show himself. Thank you for listening to this episode of Celtic Medicine Stories. If you want to go deeper, check out my Working with Archetypes free email course. There's a link somewhere in these notes. You'll find it. And feel free to visit on my website, kathoughton.com, KATHOUGHTON.com. I'd love to hear from you. Go well.